You've been told to improve yourself, read more, earn more, eat clean, wake up earlier, and you did. You became sharper, stronger, more disciplined. But here's the painful truth. Sometimes self-improvement kills love. Not because growth is bad, but because you fall into traps that turn you inward, rigid, and disconnected. Stoic philosophers warned about this centuries ago. Life is not just about perfecting the self, but about fulfilling your duty in relationships. Tonight, I'll share 7 self-improvement traps that sabotage love. Each one comes with a Stoic insight, modern psychology, and a practical move you can try today. Trap 1. Turning growth into a solo sport. You say you're working on yourself, but deep down you've made your relationship an afterthought. You've built a fortress of habits, routines, and goals so airtight that no one else can breathe inside. You convince yourself that your personal success will naturally overflow to those around you. If I win, they win. But closeness doesn't work through trickle down. It's built in the moment, face to face, heart to heart. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "What is not good for the swarm is not good for the bee." The Stoics knew we are not separate units competing for space, but parts of a whole, bound by duty and affection. To detach your personal progress from the people who walk beside you is to cut off your own roots. Modern psychology backs this up. Studies on long-term couples show that communal strength, the willingness to give without expecting repayment, is one of the strongest predictors of relationship satisfaction. When you start keeping mental ledgers of who gave what, love turns into a business transaction, and resentment becomes the silent auditor. You wake up at 5 a.m., crush your workout, meditate, read, chase your career goals. Great. But if your partner feels like a footnote in your schedule, your discipline is no longer discipline. It's neglect wearing a noble mask. Growth that isolates is not growth. It's self-absorption, polished to look productive. Think about it. What's the point of climbing if you don't reach down to lift the person who once held the ladder steady for you? What use is inner peace if it creates distance rather than closeness? True strength is measured by how your growth enriches, not erases, the bond you share. So tonight, experiment with what I call a we block. 10 minutes, no screens, no multitasking, no background noise. Just one act of attention, a real conversation, a hand held, a story shared. Do it not as a favor, not as an obligation, but as a recognition that growth isn't real unless it includes the people you claim to love. Because the real trap isn't just making self-improvement a solo sport. The real trap is waking up one day with everything you thought you wanted, success, discipline, progress, only to realize you've got no one left to share it with. Trap 2. Treating your partner like a project. Self-improvement sharpens your eye for flaws. You train yourself to see weaknesses, inefficiencies, and habits that need correction. That mindset serves you well when directed inward, but when you turn it outward onto your partner, it can quietly poison love. A relationship is not a renovation site, and your partner is not a project. Love is not built on constant editing. It's built on acceptance, the radical, steady kind that says, "I see you as you are, and I choose you anyway." That doesn't mean you never influence each other. It means you influence by example, not by control. The Stoics were clear about this. Epictetus taught, Some things are in our control and others not. Your partner's character, choices, and personality fall outside your control. You can't mold another person into your design without breaking the very bond you're trying to protect. Your role is to live your values, to model virtue, and let that quiet strength ripple outward. Modern research agrees. Longitudinal studies on couples show that those who practice self-distancing, reframing conflicts as if observing from a neutral third-person perspective, are far more likely to preserve marital quality over time. Why? Because stepping back removes the urge to fix. It shifts the focus from "how do I change them" to "how do I understand them?" And understanding is the soil where empathy grows. Picture this. Your partner walks through the door drained from work. You see the mess, the stress, the scattered thinking, and you immediately jump into coaching mode. You should meditate. You should time block. You should be more organized. But in that moment, they don't want a manager. They want a companion. They don't need your prescriptions. They need your presence. So, instead of defaulting to problem solving, try a simple question that changes the entire tone of the exchange. Do you want support, or do you want a solution? This single line communicates humility. It acknowledges that your role is not to dictate, but to offer what is actually needed. And here's a practical ritual. Once a month, declare an acceptance day. On that day, you agree not to correct, not to advise, not to critique, just to listen, affirm, and encourage. No fixing, just love in its simplest, purest form. Because the trap here isn't just treating your partner like a project, it's forgetting that love is not an engineering problem. It's not about optimization, it's about presence. And when you stop trying to sculpt the person you love, you give them the freedom to grow, not into who you want, but into who they were always meant to be. Trap 3. Optimizing yourself into numbness. You track your steps, calories, productivity, hours slept. Everything has a chart, a metric, a target. At first, this discipline feels empowering. You see progress, you see results, but slowly, without noticing, you start treating emotions the way you treat inefficiencies. You don't let feelings breathe. You want them neat, measurable, resolved. Love becomes another line item to optimize, and intimacy starts to suffocate. But relationships aren't spreadsheets. They don't thrive under the logic of numbers. They thrive under the rhythm of presence. You can't quantify affection or chart closeness. You can't measure a laugh, a glance, or a late-night conversation that heals more than any routine ever could. The Stoics understood this balance better than we give them credit for. They never denied emotion. What they sought was mastery over reaction, not erasure of feeling. Seneca warned, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." The lesson is not to suppress your emotions, but to examine them, to separate signal from noise. A feeling is not a glitch in your system, it's a message. And in love, ignoring those messages is like muting your partner's voice. Modern psychology echoes this. Studies show that people who pursue self-concordant goals, objectives aligned with their core values, report greater well-being than those chasing status-driven or purely external goals. Metrics are empty if they aren't anchored in meaning. What's the point of hitting perfect numbers if they cost you the warmth of connection? Think about how optimization sneaks in. You skip date night because it doesn't fit your macros. You refuse spontaneous fun because it disrupts tomorrow's routine. You say no to adventure because it wastes time you could use for productivity. And little by little you become healthier, leaner, sharper, but also colder, more distant, harder to reach. You're optimized, but you're numb. Here's the pivot. Instead of asking, "Did I hit 10,000 steps?" ask, "Did my choices help me show up with presence for my partner? Did you notice their tone today? Did you sit with them without a clock running in your head? Did you laugh together without wondering how many calories you burned?" Try tracking presence, not just performance. At the end of the week, reflect. How many times did I truly connect? How often did I make space for joy, not just efficiency? Because in the long run, your partner won't remember your macros or your productivity app. They'll remember whether they felt seen, heard and cherished in the small, unmeasured moments. Optimization makes you stronger, but if it costs you your capacity to feel, then it's not strength, it's armor. And love cannot survive behind armor. Trap 4. Boundaries becoming walls. Boundaries are vital. They protect your time, your energy, and your sense of self. But taken too far, they don't safeguard connection. They strangle it. You defend your peace so fiercely that no one gets close enough to disturb it. What started as self-respect quietly mutates into self-isolation. True strength isn't measured by how well you keep people out. It's measured by how steady you remain while letting people in. The Stoics never preached withdrawal from life. They lived in courts, in armies, in bustling cities, constantly tested by politics and conflict. Their aim was not to escape disturbance, but to remain virtuous despite it. If your so-called peace requires that no one challenge you, it's not peace. It's avoidance disguised as wisdom. Psychological research on flexibility in relationships makes the same point. Couples who can adjust, compromise, and endure some discomfort while holding on to shared values are the ones who thrive. Rigidity, the refusal to bend, kills intimacy. You don't bond by staying untouched. You bond by staying engaged even when it stings. Think about how easy it is to weaponize boundaries. I don't argue. I don't do drama. At first, that sounds noble, but what it often means is you refuse to face tension head-on. You shut down difficult conversations, sidestep conflict, and bury discomfort under silence. And in that silence, resentment ferments. One unspoken frustration grows into 10. The relationship doesn't explode, it withers. Boundaries should not be brick walls, they should be doors with locks. You control access, yes, but you also let people in. The difference is choice, not closure. A wall shuts others out forever. A door opens when trust and care call for it. Here's a simple shift you can try in your next conflict. Instead of saying, "I need space," which feels like abandonment, say, "I need 15 minutes, but I promise to come back." That tiny promise changes everything. You're not running away, you're taking a pause with the intent to return. You've turned a wall into a door, because the truth is, love will always test your calm. There will be raised voices, misunderstandings, hard truths you'd rather avoid. But intimacy doesn't grow in perfect stillness. It grows in the storm, when you choose to stay, to face, and to open the door again. Boundaries protect love. Walls bury it alive. Trap 5. Studying love instead of practicing it. You binge podcasts, watch endless YouTube talks, devour books, and scroll through relationship threads thinking you're improving. On the surface, it feels like growth. You're stacking knowledge, collecting insights, becoming wise. But if all that knowledge never leaves your head, it's not growth, it's self-deception. Epictetus was blunt on this. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Philosophy wasn't meant to be recited like grammar rules. It was meant to shape how you live. If your shelves are lined with books on intimacy, but your partner feels neglected, then your wisdom is only decoration. And modern science backs this danger. Research on choice overload shows that too much information doesn't empower people, it paralyzes them. Faced with countless options, the brain stalls, afraid of making the wrong move. The same thing happens with relationship advice. You drown in theories. 5 communication styles, 7 attachment types, 12 love languages, and with so many frameworks in your head, you hesitate. You analyze instead of act. So you end up like this. You read 5 books on conflict resolution, but still can't look your partner in the eye and say, "That hurt me." You watch hours of content on vulnerability, but still hide your feelings. You consume wisdom like fast food, plenty of intake, zero digestion, and just like junk food, it leaves you full but malnourished. The truth is, love isn't a subject to master. It's a craft to practice. It happens in awkward conversations, in imperfect attempts, in the messy middle of trial and error. No book can replace the trembling courage it takes to say, "I need you," or the humility it takes to admit, "I was wrong." So here's a practical test. For every new idea you learn, apply it within 24 hours. Don't just underline it in a book, live it. If you hear about gratitude, send a message tonight. "I'm thankful for the way you..." If you learn about active listening, then tonight, put the phone down and let your partner talk without interruption. If you come across advice on forgiveness, forgive something small today instead of waiting for the perfect moment. Because wisdom untested rots into theory, but wisdom applied, even clumsily, becomes intimacy. Don't hoard it, don't worship it, test it, live it, share it. That's how knowledge transforms from words on a page into love that's actually felt. Trap 6. Processing pain the wrong way. Self-improvement tells you to work through your issues. But you either over-process, spending hours analyzing every feeling, or under-process, pretending nothing hurts. Both destroy closeness. The Stoics taught moderation. Don't suppress emotions completely, but don't let them run the show. Reason guides, emotion informs. Studies show that couples who share positive events with each other build more satisfaction than couples who only process negatives. This is called capitalization. Responding with enthusiasm when your partner shares good news. You spend 3 nights a week unpacking childhood wounds, but you never celebrate small joys. Or the opposite, you bury pain and never give your partner access to your inner world. Both starve connection. Share one small win daily. Today, I solved a problem at work. Let your partner respond. That builds joy. And when pain comes, schedule 20 minutes to discuss, then move toward action or pause it. Trap 7. Fixating on labels. You dive into the world of self-discovery. You learn about attachment styles, personality tests, trauma responses. These tools were meant to give language to your patterns, but instead you turn them into cages. You start declaring, "I'm anxious, so I'll always cling," or "I'm avoidant, so I'll always withdraw." What was meant to explain becomes a permanent excuse. This is the quiet danger of labels. They're useful as maps, but they're not prisons. A map helps you understand where you are. It doesn't decide where you'll go. When you start treating your label as fate, you stop taking responsibility for growth. You hand your freedom over to a word. Marcus Aurelius pushed back against this kind of resignation. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Your label is not fate. You are what you choose to practice, moment by moment." The Stoic path was never about excuses. It was about responsibility, owning what is yours, no matter how difficult. Modern research agrees. Studies on attachment show that while patterns from childhood can shape how you connect, they're only moderately stable. People do change. With new habits, healing experiences, and intentional practice, the anxious can become secure. The avoidant can learn closeness. The fearful can learn safety. Labels can describe your starting point, but they don't lock in your ending. Think of how labels sneak into relationships. Your partner shares a hurt, and instead of listening, you dismiss them with, "That's just my attachment style." Or you shut down a conflict by saying, "I'm an introvert, I don't do this." That's not love. That's laziness dressed as psychology. You're using the language of growth to avoid the work of growth. So here's the shift. Translate every label into behavior. Don't stop at "I'm avoidant." Say, "When I feel judged, I withdraw." My new response is to say, "I need a pause, but I'll return." Don't stop at "I'm anxious." Say, "When I feel uncertain, I overtext." My new response is to breathe, then ask directly for reassurance. Behaviors can change. Labels can't. Love requires movement. Labels are static. If you cling to them, you stay frozen. But if you treat them as signposts, they guide you toward choices that build connection instead of excuse distance. Because at the end of the day, your partner doesn't need you to recite your personality type. They need you to practice presence, patience, and courage. Labels may explain your past, but only action shapes your future. Self-improvement should make you more human, not less. Stronger, but softer too. Sharper, but warmer. The Stoics remind us virtue is proven in relationship, not in isolation. So ask yourself tonight, is my growth building bridges or building walls? If your answer is walls, then you're not growing, you're hiding. Take these 7 traps seriously. Don't just improve for yourself, improve for love. Because what use is all your discipline, your books, your money, if the person lying next to you feels invisible? Growth should never cost intimacy. Growth should protect it. That's the measure of true self-improvement.